My Little Pony is really weird. And it's not just me saying it, the internet says it too, and also a true authority in equestrian knowledge, TV Nada, a sick man and apparent closeted brony who wrote this script. Although he says he doesn't really know about it, but I don't believe him at all.
This show is very strange, and sometimes it deals with topics that are way too adult for what we're used to from a children's entertainment network, and an animated show that's trying to sell you dolls with hair for girls to comb.
And it's actually because of my fear of that obsessive horde of fans that we haven't talked about this series, and also because I haven't really watched it much. Besides, it's such a long and complicated series that there's always a small chance a brony will pop out of a sewer to insult our research because we forgot to go to Chengdu to see the live show of the Chinese holograms from a few years ago, of which there are almost no recordings. So if something like that ends up happening in this video, I'm really sorry, and please leave any corrections or additions to what you'll see in the next 12 minutes in the comments. So, as you join me on our first visit to Equestria, we're going to discover that one of the main ponies we've been following and working with for so long is actually one of the most evil, twisted, and morally wrong characters you might see in all of animated media. A real estate landlord. The script doesn't pull any punches. It says she's a real estate landlord. Well, actually, she doesn't really own any real estate, but she's definitely a gentrifier with a capital G. Just give me 10 minutes to explain. To prove this kind of mystery, we need data, like how Ponyville changed, the cultural impact, and the population changes we see year after year, and things like that. According to the Royal Spanish Academy, gentrification is defined as the process of renovating an urban area, usually a working class or rundown neighborhood, which involves the displacement of its original population by another group with greater purchasing power. Put in more third world terms that we can all understand, it's like when suddenly the rents in your neighborhood start going up all at once. The elderly and families start moving out, and the price of a dozen eggs doubles for no apparent reason, while suddenly a bunch of people show up speaking a foreign language for no reason at all. The food isn't spicy anymore, and now all the restaurant menus are in English. Putting aside projections and all that, we can quickly see that Ponyville society does show certain recurring patterns. For example, Twilight really is an outsider. At the beginning of the show, she comes from the big city of Canterlot to Ponyville to make some friends along with something extremely important: to supervise the Summer Sunday celebration. From there, the show continues just as we know it, with her becoming closer and closer to the residents, building lasting friendships, and defeating huge ancient enemies, with the story eventually leading to one of the most important pieces of literature of our time. If we look closely at its first season, we'll notice how extremely different it is from the following ones. Because it wasn't just about more episodic low-stakes adventures, with Twilight focused on getting to know people and their customs better, but it was focused on gathering the elements of friendship to defeat Nightmare Moon, and it's these last two details that matter most for the video, because it's such a small, silly, and insignificant element that only a galaxy-level nerd would have noticed. So it turns out that the other day, TV Nauta was watching a video by More Hardson, who was explaining the decline of animation in the series, and according to this guy it seems to be tied to a rather curious phenomenon: the loss of the town's original identity. It turns out that during the series, a very important aspect of everything we see is explained to us, and that's that the ponies, at least at the beginning, they are basically responsible for absolutely everything related to nature, because in this world, nature doesn't work like it does in the real world. For example, in episode 11, Winter Ride, they are the ones who have to wake up the animals that are hibernating, remove the snow, and change the weather. It's a universe where a pony has to move the sky, the moon, and the stars, and even in the fall we can see a race that celebrates the leaves falling, and we can imagine that it helps with the process. In fact, I would also like to point out how Twilight is sent to this town for the first time, precisely with the responsibility of taking care of the Summer Sunday preparations. An event that we're told has happened annually since the defeat of Celestia's sister, like a kind of military victory, and we can assume that it's celebrated throughout the world. The event changes around season 9 because the memory was extremely painful, and now it's being presented as a reunion between both sisters, which not only shows us that these traditions can be altered, but that the protagonists themselves have the power to do so. This is how they present this small world to us, with all the ponies fulfilling a special role within their society beyond their daily jobs, basically keeping their biomes functional. It's a very interesting idea, which is strangely dropped for the rest of the series. And no, you in the comments who's about to write about the Summer Sunday celebration showing up in season 6, I haven't forgotten about it. But the thing is, many of these original celebrations we mentioned were mostly eliminated and replaced by their human counterparts from the second season onward. Things like Christmas, Valentine's Day, or Halloween start to appear little by little in the show. They're important celebrations, yes, but they no longer have any kind of connection to that natural cycle that originally defined the society of Ponyville. And in fact, they seem to be more and more focused on the pony's own vanity. With this, I'm not saying at all that absolutely everyone has stopped doing their natural duties, since throughout the series there are many other examples where the main characters and some secondary ones continue with these kinds of tasks. But it just doesn't seem to be a social activity at all anymore. It's as if little by little these kinds of cultural activities have been replaced. Just like the hot sauce in the gentrified neighborhoods of Mexico City. And then there's the thing about the cutie marks. What was originally sold as a search for purpose in life, a moment of catharsis where your secret passion is revealed to you and you're left with a memory for life, as we saw in the first season, later becomes something very different. By the 7th season we have something much more efficient, and I would even dare to say corporate. It's a kind of template in the form of a camp that the kids can attend,
being part of a bunch of prefabricated activities so that one of them clicks with them and triggers their cutie mark.
Of course, this is justified as if it was done to help, but I think it's very obvious that this important moment has been chewed up, repackaged, and sold in such a way that it doesn't even seem like the original experience anymore.
In true late capitalist fashion. So for the people of Ponyville, these celebrations and traditions they've participated in for years have slowly disappeared, with their purposes diluted in the name of progress. And even that special moment of getting the cutie mark was completely replaced by a more sanitized and efficient experience.
As the series goes on, the background characters get more and more prominence in the episodes, and interestingly, some of them have important changes in their behavior worth mentioning.
One of the best examples of this would be the character Lyra Heartstrings, who had an obsession with humans. Quite remarkable.
Because of the way she behaved, moved, and even sat like a human in a chair, or held things with her hands, something that with the change in animation started to become less and less special. And the show simply didn't mention it, as far as I remember.
There's also Discord, who, despite being the embodiment and physical manifestation of chaos and disharmony,
anyone who has seen season 8 or 9 can agree that he acts in increasingly rude and harder to justify ways as the show goes on. It's a bit strange when we consider that his existence is meant to balance this world, by definition. A god who counterbalances absolute order and someone who shouldn't be as malicious as he sometimes seems.
This is the moment when everything connects in Twilight, and the reason I waited until the end to mention it is because honestly, I don't think you would have believed me if I hadn't shown proof before saying this crazy thing.
We have to understand that it's very likely not even Celestia herself could have imagined everything that would be set in motion by sending the antisocial pony off and asking her to please make some friends. Well, shortly after her arrival, she managed to defeat Nightmare, thus beginning a long list of achievements for the Six, saving the world from complete destruction several times, and even becoming somewhat famous. Just as shown in the Fame and Misfortune episode from season 7, this means that a lot of people started turning their attention to Ponyville thanks to Twilight, and this traditional place, little by little, not only began to tone down its own customs while accepting some more generic ones, but it also seems that it adopted those from Canterlot as well. Because now Princess Celestia was giving all her attention to this little town in the middle of nowhere. In fact, that brings up a very interesting point. Now that the highest authority constantly seems to turn her attention to this place that was previously unknown, along with the fact that the most important people in the world live there, well, it's obvious that everyone would want to live there. It will start to become more noticeable, to stand out more, which would explain the flanderization of some characters, both main and background, due to this external pressure and attention. Along with this, we also see the appearance of supposed modernity and supposed progress, changing how their cutie marks work, changing the way they organize their most fundamental and traditional tasks,
making them less and less special, less interesting.
Until we get to the last seasons, where the world building really suffers.
So Twilight, completely unknowingly and without planning it, took a small place in the world and ended up taking away everything that made it special, thanks to attracting a bunch of people, who, like a good gringo with an apartment in a Latin American city, little by little started displacing everything that made that place special, in the first place.
And if you think this sounds exaggerated, I want you to remember that this is the series that made things like that canon.
Things like fascism, xenophobia, imposed communist regimes, bizarre torture methods, or post-apocalyptic futures where everyone dies.
So thinking that someone accidentally gentrified a random little town, believe me, doesn't sound at all like something outside the topics this series would cover. So I hope you enjoyed this video, give it a like if you did, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget that TV Noto is a closeted brony even if he doesn't want to admit it, or at least that's what I think. Goodbye!